You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me?
Welcome to this beginner's course in Unreal Engine and how to make epic cinematics. First thing you have to do is you have to go to epicgames.com and you download the Epic installer from there. And when you install this, you will have to leave enough space on your drive for it. You will need at least 100 gigabyte of space in order to install the Epic Games launcher and Unreal Engine. Once you finish installing, it's gonna take a while to install. You have to search for the Fab plugin as well in the launcher. And once that is installed, you can then launch your Unreal, and this is focused on Unreal 5.5. And when you launch Unreal Engine, you will first have your project browser, where first you have to set what kind of platform you want to use, and you want to use the games platform. And then I set it to third person because that gives you a third person character to work from that you need. And you turn on starter content because that will give you preloaded assets that you can work with. And you then pick your destination of your project and name it however seems fitting for you. It will take a while to load the first time. Once your project opens, you will see the Unreal Engine editor, which consists of several important panels. The main interface overview goes like this. You have the viewport, is the center panel. This is where you see and edit your 3D scene. On the top right, you have the world outliner. That's the list of all the objects, actors that you have in your level. And you have the content browser in the bottom left that stores all your imported assets, textures, and materials, but also metahumans, which is also part of the assets. Details panel, you'll see that on the bottom right, that shows properties of whatever object that you have selected. And on the top bar, you will see the toolbar that contains shortcuts for saving, rendering, and editing, and a few other things, like for example your sequencer that we'll come to later. To navigate the viewport and to move around in Unreal Engine, you use the following controls. The right mouse button and the W and A, S and D moves the camera like a first person game. So you hold down the right mouse button and you click the W, A, S and D, and you move like you are in a game. And with the mouse scroll wheel, you will zoom in and out. If you click the left mouse button and drag, you select a move object in the viewport. And on the right mouse button and pressing Q and E, move the camera up and down. F key focuses on whatever object that you have selected at this moment. This is very handy and you use this a lot. What I do is I usually adjust my navigation settings for a familiar workflow from other softwares. I've been working a lot with Blender and Maya, and I'm used to this way of navigating the 3D interface. So I set my settings like this. I go to the edit menu in the top. I select the editor preferences, and in here you will scroll down and click on viewports, and you check the box for invert middle mouse pan. That way of navigating the interface works better for me, but if you prefer it the opposite, you're free to do so. The Alt key and the left mouse button rotates around the selected object or the center of the viewport. The Alt plus the middle mouse button pans the viewport, and the Alt and the right mouse button zooms in and out smoothly. When you go to the top right and click the camera symbol, you can adjust the camera speed. If you go to the top right of your viewport, you can adjust if you want to have snapping on or off, or how delicate you want your snapping to be. As you can see here on my rotation, I just turned off the snapping, and here on the movement I have the snapping on. As you can see, it's moving to very delicate snapping points in the viewport, and if I move the number up to, for example, 50, you can see the snapping is much further away, and at the 500 the distance of the snapping is much higher. You can decide for yourself if you want it on or off. Let's create a new level. In order to start a new level, you click File and click New Level. From here we select the basic, and that will provide a simple plane, lighting, and a sky atmosphere. And we need to save it as well, so we go to File, click Save Current Level As, and then you name it whatever is fitting for you. I will put it into a folder, and I will usually call it Maps. That's where I store all my levels or maps that I create. I call this one Cinematic _ Scene. Let's add some basic objects to the scene. In order to do that, you go up to the left in the Place Actors panel on the left side, and here you can find basic objects. And here on the list you can see the list of objects you can select from. So let's try and look for like geometry, and then you can drag in, for example, a box if you desire. For now I'll just drag in a cube and a sphere, and let's add in a cylinder. To move and adjust objects, what you do is you click W to enable the move tool, where you can move and drag the object around. You click E to enable the rotate tool, where you can adjust any sort of rotation of your selected object. And you press R to enable the scale tool, where you can resize the object in any angle that you desire. If you click Alt and left button and drag, you will duplicate an object. To import assets, you are using the Fab plugin. In order to make sure that the plugin is activated, you go into Plugins, search for the Fab, and make sure that is enabled. From here, you go into your Add button on the left, and you click on the Fab. Here you have a list of assets that you can import into your Unreal scene. You can find free assets, but there will also be assets that you have to purchase. You can see there's a filter option where you can filter through what kind of assets you want to import. So for now we are searching for rocks, and what we will find is the different options we have for downloading these rocks. And you're going to see a list of rocks. I'm trying to reset the filters just to show you how that works. So you click, for example, 3D models, that's what your filter is, because that's what we're looking for. And we find these mossy rocks, and I say, these are great, I'm gonna use those. And simply just make sure that you have the quality setting that you desire. And you simply click Add to Project. And that will download the mossy rocks into your Unreal Engine directly. As you can see already, they are in here, already placed into a folder called Megascans, and here you find your mossy rocks, and you can simply select them and drag them into your scene. It's really straightforward. And from here you can scale, move or rotate your selected asset. To keep things organized, you can create folders and groups in your outliner. So what I will do here is I will select the objects I have in my scene at the moment. I'll go to my outliner and I'll right click, and I will scroll down till I get to the move to option, and I will create a new folder, and it will instantly move the objects into this folder, and you name it to whatever is fitting. I will then select the objects within the folder, right click again, and I'll find group and click group, and instantly they will be grouped together. So when you select one of the objects, it will select the whole group, which can help things a lot for your workflow. To be able to use Metahumans, you have to first install and enable the plugin, and you do that by going to your Epic Games launcher. You search for Metahuman plugin and you install it, and make sure you also install the Quixel bridge as well. From here we go into the plugins in Unreal Engine. We first search for the Metahuman, and you make sure that your Metahuman plugins are activated, and also make sure that your Quixel bridge is activated, and you'll be asked to restart. To import Metahumans, you have to click the window in the top left window and click on the Quixel bridge from the list. In here you will navigate down to the Metahumans section, where you will have Metahuman presets that you can download directly, or you can click on one and open the Metahuman creator, where you can modify your Metahumans to create unique Metahumans. What I did here was I selected a Metahuman, and I clicked the Metahuman creator launch, and that opened up the Metahuman creator window in your browser. And I opened the Metahuman called Natalia here, and what I do from here is I would then click on create selected, which will open her up and give me the options to modify the features of her face. You can decide if you want a higher quality of your viewport. That depends on the specs of your machine, if it can run it. Here you have options where you can blend between different metahumans if you desire, or you can go into a specific sculpt option, which that's what I usually use. And here you see the points on the face where you can move the different facial features around until you get to what you want. I'm happy with the proportions as they are now, so I'll move into the skin and check if I want to make it a bit brighter or darker. Depends on what you need for your character. And you can also adjust the oiliness of the skin in the roughness section. Eyes, here you can adjust the eye color. We'll also even adjust the whiteness in the white of the eye. I think this eye color works pretty well for this character. Then teeth, you can adjust the whiteness and the length of the teeth as well. Sometimes I feel like the teeth they create by default are a little bit too white, which makes it a little bit too unrealistic, so I add a little bit of color to them and try to make the teeth so they're not so perfect. And for the makeup, you have a few options you can do. I'm just gonna quickly scroll through them to see which one I think works best for this character. This seems to work best for me. This other one, the makeup is a little bit heavy, so the full thin liner seems to work for this character. You can also add some foundation if that's what you need, but I don't need that for this character. And then when you go down to the hair, you can first on the top of the head, you have a few options, default presets of hair you can select from. And I'm just quickly navigating through them to see which one works best for what I'm going for. And for this particular character, I want it to be a bit more like an agent character, so this bun seems to fit with that, at least from my interpretation. And I want to give her a little bit heavier eyebrows. And the short thin eyelashes work for me. And in the body proportions, you have the short, average, and tall, and a skinny, medium, and a bit heavier model. I'm going for the more medium proportions for this character. I'm gonna make her short. For the body, you can have a bit of different clothes selections to choose from. And for this character, since he's a bit more like a police or agent, I'm going for the shirt and some fitting pants, and to make the color fit as well, I'm going for dark, basically almost black, because I'm thinking about agent and I'm thinking a little bit like MIB style. with the dark clothes. I'm adjusting the hair color a little bit to be more dark. It was a bit reddish brownish before. I want to make it black. And voila, we have a Metahuman ready to import. Almost. I'm just quickly gonna check out if the shoes are fitting, even though I think we're probably not gonna be even gonna see them, but just quickly showing you that you can also adjust the shoes. And when you rename it, it will automatically create a new character with that name. And from here on, when you go back and you close this down, you will actually see this agent is now inside of your list of metahumans. I'm just quickly checking out some expressions. You have an option that you can change the lighting as well to see your character in different lighting scenarios, which is a quite great option, because here you might notice things that doesn't work for you and you can do the last tweaks before you import it. So I'm happy with what we have, so I'll shut this down and move on to create the next metahuman, and then I'll import. So as you can see here, it's on my list of my own metahumans. I'll leave the page for now. And as you can see over on the left, you have your list of my metahumans, and then that's where I will go and select this metahuman. And there's yes up there on the top. You will click the green download button. You can go down on the right and you can select what quality of metahuman you want. For this, since this is for a cinematic, I decided to go for the cinematic with the highest quality you can get. If you're making a game, you can decide to use a much less quality level. So here I have a new window where you can see I have the other character also created, and I've already downloaded the characters. When they're downloaded, you just have to click the blue button and they will automatically export directly into Unreal Engine. It's really easy and straightforward. When you import them into Unreal Engine, you'll be prompted to enable some missing plugins, and then you'll be prompted to restart your Unreal Engine. And make sure you're selected before you restart your engine. And here you go. Here you see your metahumans on your lists in your content folder. You can see the agent there that we created. You drag her into your scene. First time, it will take a bit of time, but that's only the first time that you drag her in. And it will ask you again to enable some missing plugins, and then you'll be prompted to restart once more. And here we have our Metahuman ready to use. Let's move on to the next step and get some animation or mocap added to our Metahuman. First thing we do is we go into the cinematic scene that we created earlier. Let's select the group that we created earlier and move it out of the way. Then we need to go to the Fab Marketplace to look for some mocap or some animation that we can use. So I'll open the Marketplace. I already have this, but you have to search for it on the Fab Marketplace. So I select this one, Interaction Animation, and you can see it here on the Fab Marketplace, where you will have to buy it, but I already have it on my list. And I'll add it to my project, and I'll select which project I want to add it to. And this project that I call Unreal Startup, it's not there because this animation is made for Unreal 5.4. So I will have to do a workaround because I'm using Unreal 5.5. So I'm actually adding this to a Unreal 5.4 project that I already have as a workaround. I think really soon this animation is going to be updated, so you don't have to do this workaround. But for now, this is a workaround you can use in your future in case you are encountering this obstacle. So I'm going to start this Unreal project that I just exported the animation into. You have to be a little bit patient to wait for it to launch. And here you have it. When you look on the left in your content browser, you can see the activations mocap is there. I then select the activations mocap, right click and click migrate, and I navigate to the project where I want to migrate it to. I go to the content folder and just click select folder, and then it will migrate your package to the correct Unreal project. You will have to wait a little bit, be a little bit patient. Once that is done, you close that and you go back to your Unreal 5.5 project. And you can see it's on the list there on the top. Let's retarget the animation. To quickly describe what I mean when I say retarget animation is that when you import animation like this, it's not gonna be matching with your Metahuman skeleton. So in order for this animation to match, you will have to do a retarget so that this animation also fits with the Metahuman skeleton. I'm just quickly loading this animation to see it, how it looks. And that looks good to me. Then you right click, scroll up into retarget animation. You then make sure that the first source skeleton mesh is the one that is selected, and to the target skeleton mesh you find your Metahuman, the main body skeleton, and you scroll down on your list and find the animation you want to use. And simply you can first export retarget asset, so you have it as an asset, that retarget skeleton, if you need to, and put it into a folder that seems fitting. and then you can export the animations. You create the folder that seems to fit to what you need. I call this one Retargeting Animation. It seems fitting to me. And you can also prefix it. That will make it easier to navigate when you export a lot of animations and you have to find specific animations. If you prefix it, it will be easier for you to find it. Export, and then they will be there. And as you can see in that folder Retargeting Animations, you have your animation right there. Let's check the animation. To do that, we create a sequence. First, create a cinematics folder. That's how I usually work. Go up to your camera symbol on the top, create a level, and that you place it inside your cinematics folder. I decide to label this sequence cinematic enter. In here, you can set the frames per second. I've set mine to 24 frames per second, and I make sure to click on the key button, which will make sure that you have automated keys. When you move a bone or an object, it will automatically set a key, which makes things a lot easier and faster. Then you drag in your Metahuman into your sequencer. And as you can see, by default, it will have a Metahuman control rig already activated that you can animate and move around as you wish. But if you want to add a mocap animation, you will need to delete that control rig. So let's delete that. Go and click body, click the plus button. You find animation on top, and then you can search for the animation. You just retarget it, and voila. So it's that easy. You'll have your animation on your Metahuman. If you want to add some animation on top of this animation, you can add an animation layer. You click the body, you click the plus, and you go up to the control rig. You select the layered, and then you select your control rig. From here, you just open up your layered. Once this layer has been added, you can go down and select your control rig and start animating on top of your existing animation. So I'm selecting the upper arm, I'm moving it to the side and clicking the S key to create a key. And as you can see, the arm is now moved doing the same base animation, but with an extra added animation or position on top. Let's do a quick test just to show you an example. We create the hip, we move her down into a crouching position, click S to put a key and put her up to a standing position later in the frame 59. And when we scroll through the sequence, you can see that she's animating on top of the existing animation. Let's create a new level with proper lighting. First, go to the top menu, go to File, create New Level. Let's select an empty level this time instead of basic. The viewport will now be completely black, meaning there's no default lighting in the scene. Let's save this level as lighting setup. I'll make sure to save it in the proper folder in the Maps folder. Then you go into Window, click the Environment Light Mixer and set the minimal to normal advanced. You create a skylight, directional light, atmosphere light, and volumetric cloud, and hide fog. And let's make sure to turn on the volumetric fog. This will ensure that you have a more realistic behaving cinematic fog. An important next step is to add a post-process volume. You add that from the Place Extras tab. Let's go up there and search for it. Post-process. You drag it into your scene. And first in your details panel, you search for infinite. infinite extent unbound. That's quite important because that means that it's gonna impact the rest of the universe outside of its box. And then you set the exposure settings to 1 and 1, which is the most default setup for cinematics. A quick important side note is that you have to remember to go to your project settings and turn off the auto exposure. This is important if you want to have full control over your exposure settings, which ensures the cinematic quality that you're looking for. Let's create a landscape. Landscape is a completely different universe that would require a completely different video if you have to go fully into the details of this. But basically, this landscape can be your base for your exterior world, where you can create infinite landscapes. You have sculpting tools that you can use to sculpt it into exactly what you want. And afterwards, you can add your materials and you can add layers of materials, and there's a whole world to dive into when it comes to the landscape. I'll quickly show you, after we did this quick sculpting, that you can add a basic material to your landscape. This is like super oversimplified. There's a lot more to it than this, but just to quickly show you, if you want a rocky material, you just go into your landscape material option and you select material. Now it's going to tile like crazy. So there's ways to get around that, but I'm not going to dive into that in this video. Here I'm focusing on the light, so I have selected the directional light. And as you can see, when you rotate it around, you can set it to whatever time of day you want. And you can set the intensity to higher or lower. The source angle will determine the shadow, how sharp or soft it will be. When you select your height fog, you can first go into your fog density, because when you set it up to really high, you're not gonna see much, and then you can turn it down, all depending on what the mood is that you're trying to go for. And you can also adjust the fall off of your fog, of how close you want it to ground level, or do you want it to gradient it up towards to the sky. It's all about what artistic direction you decide to go for with your lighting. Next step, let's create a camera. Set your project to 24 frames per second because that's the default for cinematics. Turn on the key button and go and click the camera symbol in your sequencer. And that will create a camera cuts track and a camera. You need the camera cuts track in order for the render to be able to see the camera. If you don't have it, it's not going to render. Select the camera and go to your details panel, and in here you can see the film back settings. I'm setting mine to the DSLR for now. I'm choosing the 50mm lens and I'm setting my focus. I'm turning on my draw debug focus plane, which will show you where the focus is in your shot. Let's drag in a cube and let's adjust the focus. Click the camera, go to your draw debug focus plane, turn it off and on, and then it will show you where the focus is in your view. Let's try it and set a 85mm lens and adjust the focus. I'm now duplicating the cube just to enhance the effect of the motion blur, so you can see the difference between the two boxes. So you can see that the one in the foreground is in focus, the one in the background is out of focus. Let's try and animate the camera. I'll just navigate with the camera selected, and you have to make sure to click that little camera symbol next to the label name, so it highlights blue, because that will mean you can actually see through your camera viewport. So I'm moving it like I'm moving the perspective camera, just adjusting through the camera, the first frame of where I want to start my camera movement, and I'm starting at frame 0. I'm moving the camera around. I'm clicking the set key button with the camera selected, and then I'm moving my camera within the camera view to the next frame or the end frame I want where the camera to end. And I also have to animate the focus, so I'm making sure that in the last frame that the focus is animated and the keyframed correctly. This is the curves editor. This will make it possible for you to adjust the movement of your animation. This is not just for the cameras, for anything that you animate. You can adjust the curves, the in and outs of your movement. So let's see how it looks. This is our camera move. You can right click with your selected keyframes and set it to linear instead. This means that there's not going to be an ease in and ease out of the camera movement. It's going to just move in a completely linear fashion from the beginning to the end of the shot. You can adjust the length and the in and the out point of your sequence by moving the red marker in your timeline, or you move the green marker for the beginning of the shot, where you want it to start or where you want it to end. A little side note is that when you move the camera cuts track a little bit further ahead, it will make sure that when you render that the first frames are not coming out strange. It's a little bug, but hopefully soon they will fix this. Make sure to remember that when you extend your shot, that you also make sure that the camera cuts track is also extended. Oh, and I forgot to say, the way to navigate around in the sequencer is that you hold down the right mouse button and drag, and that will move it back and forth. And if you hold down the control and the middle mouse button, will either extend or shorten the view of your sequence. Let's render out this shot that we just created. First thing you do is you go to your camera cuts track and you make sure that it's linked to the camera that you have in the shot. You do that by clicking the plus symbol and checking if it's linked correctly to the correct camera. Then you go to your edit plugins, because you have to activate the render features. Search for movie, and you will have the movie render queue and movie render queue additional render passes, and you have to activate both of them and then restart. Once restarted, you go back to find your level that you created. This one is the lighting setup. I find my cinematics and I find the shot that I created, double click it, click on the camera symbol. That's very important, as you're not going to be able to see through your camera. Go to the menu, select cinematics, movie render queue, and render. In here you find the sequence you created. Go into settings. You don't want JPEG usually, because that's really low quality. Go for EXR, which is really high quality still frames. You select anti-aliasing, that's important, so you get a high quality image. Set the spatial sample count to 1, temporal sample count to 16. That's kind of default. Sometimes you might need 42, 32. But for now, this is good. Before we render, we have to make sure that the motion blur is on. To do that, go select your post-process volume, search for motion, find the motion blur, turn it on, and set the target frames per second to whatever frames per second you have in the scene to make sure that it matches. In this case, it's 24 frames per second. And now we have to set the output directory because we have to put your frames somewhere, and we put them in a place that makes sense for the project. I'll put it here in the main folder. I create a folder called render, and I create a new folder matching the name of the shot that I just created. Test render. And then click accept. And click the render local. And here, first it will compile the shaders in your scene. That can sometimes take a while. And then it starts rendering. There's not a lot of heavy effects in the scene, so this one will render pretty fast. When it's finished rendering, you import your image sequence into your Premiere or your After Effects in order for you to be able to generate a MOV file, MP4, or whatever you need. I wanted to quickly show you that if you want some of the default content specs, it's easy to add. Go click the add button, add the content to project, select the content, and select the starter content and click add to project. And there you'll see you have some base objects that you can use to create your scene. I'm taking a little side note here. I want to show you a technique that I'm using for sequencer, and from now on you're gonna see me working like this, and if you have never worked like this before, it's gonna get a bit confusing to see what I'm doing. So I wanted to show you a quick example of what exactly this I'm doing. What I'm gonna do first is I will create a new level, just a test level. Let's save it. Light sample. Save. And I'm gonna create a level sequence. Light example 10. I'm gonna go into my cinematics. I'm gonna duplicate it. Call it 20. And I'm gonna create another one and call that light example main. This is all gonna make sense soon. I'll just quickly set this to 24 frames per second on all of them so it's consistent. So what I wanted to show you is in this first shot, let's put a camera. Doesn't really matter what it does. Let's set a 50mm lens, and in the other one, I am gonna create a camera as well. And let's set this to 30. There you go. I'm just gonna do a quick save. And I'm gonna create a shape. Let's go for a sphere. I'm gonna add it in there. Click F for zoom in. There you go. I can put the direction light a little bit down, so it's a little bit darker, so this is going to be a little bit more obvious what I'm going to do. Alright, and I'm going to go to my first example. I'm clicking this button to view through the camera. Click F to zoom in what I want to zoom in on. Okay, and reset the focus. Kind of like this. We go to the camera. Do the same. We want to see it through the camera. Let's zoom in, make the angle a little bit different so we can distinguish between the two. Set the focus. I could put a little bit further away so the difference is even more clear between the two. And I am taking my rect light here and I'm dragging it into my shot light example 20. Let's rename it rect light 20. We're gonna make this super red, and I'm gonna go save again, go to the other shot. I'm dragging in a rect light again. I'm gonna rename this 10, and I'm gonna make this super green. All right, I'm quickly gonna click here to maximize or minimize my viewport. So here I have my cinematic viewport, here I have my perspective. This needs to be cinematic, this needs to be perspective. Okay, so let's select the rect light, zoom in. So let's put the green light here. Now you can see there's clearly a green light lighting the ball. Save. I'm saving a lot. And let's take the red rect light, move it up, and now we have a clear red light shining on the ball. So we have a clear difference between the two lights. Save all. And going to light example main, and what I do is I'm going to drag in light example 10. Let's make it a little bit shorter. There's no reason for it to be this long. Light example 20, and let's make it shorter. Put it there in the timeline. So let's see what happens with the two different cameras. You can see this is green and this is red. So what that means is that when you drag in a light inside a shot, it will only be active inside that shot. This is really helpful because a lot of times when you have an establishing shot and you go to a close-up, the light you have in the establishing shot is not going to work in the close-up. So in order to make that function properly, I like to work like this, that I put in some lights that are specifically working from shot to shot basis. You're gonna see me doing this when you're gonna observe me go through the shots in the cinematic. So if you're getting a bit confused about what I'm doing when I'm dragging in lights and I'm adjusting parameters of all these lights inside my specific shot, then you can see this is what's going on. I'm specifically designing the light on a shot per shot basis. I have an overall light and mood for the overall sequence, and I'll add lights in specific shots. And you can also remove lights. So if I go into my 10, let me check, and I want the light 20. Go to light 20, so we can say direct light, copy. Paste. They're kind of even out each other, these two lights. What I wanted to show you is also if you go into the overall shot and add another rec light. Come on, there you go. And we make this blue, super blue. We're gonna add this on top. This is not so clear. Let's fix the skylight and make this a lot lower. This is a lot darker, and the directional light makes this darker as well. So now we're gonna see it much clearer. So now, since we have this light here, it's gonna pop up in every single shot that you have. So here it's gonna show up in this shot. As you can see, we have the blue light on top. But what you can do is we can say, okay, let's rename this rec light blue. So if I drag in my rec light blue into my shot 10, you can then see it's still there. But if I set it to 0 here, it's gonna be not lighting the sphere in this shot. But if you go to 20, it's still gonna be there lighting this shot. So it can also be used in an opposite way when you want to reduce or remove a light that you have in, for example, an establishing shot. If this is my establishing shot, I have my rec light. It's not shot specific, it's there in the overall scene. And if you have 10 shots where you're going to use it, but you have one shot you just really don't want to use it, you can just go in to that one shot, drag it in, and set it to 0 so it's not affecting that shot. So as I said, you're going to see me doing this throughout the rest of this video when I'm creating my cinematic. And if you haven't seen this section, you might get really confused as to what I'm actually doing. I also quickly wanted to show you what you were gonna see me doing if I wanted to duplicate shots, which I do. I usually create one shot first where I have, let's say I want to have a new shot. Let's see, I add in a sub-scene track in this sequence where I will have my animation of my characters. Let's just create a new shot. We call it Animating. And in this Animating, we have a cube. And that cube is animating, so I'm just gonna click while my sequence is activated. Make sure to set it to 24 frames per second. I click yes, and now I have a key here, and I go to the last frame and set a key. So now we have an animation, Animating. I'll go back into my light example 20. And in my sub-scene track, I'm gonna add the Animating. So you can see here now, I have my animation of my cube in my subscene track. And I now want a new shot, so instead of creating a complete new shot from the beginning, and create a subscene track every single time I create a new shot, I'm just gonna duplicate this, and I will call this "30." And in my 30 shot, I don't want the same camera, so I'm gonna delete my camera. I'm gonna create a new camera. Oh, so it looks like I didn't delete the camera. There you go. There you go. Let's rename it. Duplicate. And you will see I have my camera here. Let's set it to an extreme 12mm lens. From this angle. And set the focus. So now I have a new shot. I don't have to create the subscene track again and again. So that's what you're going to see me do as well throughout the cinematic sequence. I'm going to create a new shot by duplicating the previous shot. Or a similar shot if I have a close-up of the character from one side of the table and I want another shot in a close angle to what I had before. I'm just going to duplicate that particular shot and adjust a few settings here and there, and that speeds up my workflow. Let's move on. Let's get to the fun part and create a cinematic from scratch. First, let's create a new level and create a new empty level that will be completely black. We save this level inside the maps folder. I call this one interscene_01. Next step for me is to create a cube that we will modify a little bit and put into the 0 well space. I will use this as my floor for my scene. To be able to see anything, I'll just quickly create a rect light that will be my top light in the scene. I'm gonna go to the details panel of my light and adjust the barn door angle a little bit and turn down the attenuation radius a little bit. Let's rename the cube to keep things organized. I'll call this one floor. Let's duplicate the floor. I'll rename this to table and use that as table for my scene. Turn down the scale a little bit to be the size of a table. I want it to be a little bit longer on one side than the other. I want to create this interrogation mood. So for me, in this particular scene, this is the shape of the table. I'm then creating a level sequence, going to my cinematics folder where I will save this sequence. Let's name the first shot interscene_010_010_01. And let's save it and set it immediately to 24 frames per second. Let's drag in our agent Metahuman character into our sequencer. She will then pop up in the 0 well space. Sometimes when you do this the first time, it can take a bit of time. There he goes. You can see she's a bit small in comparison to the table we just created, so I'll just quickly have to adjust that afterwards. Let's drag in Frank. This is the distance approximately I want them to sit from each other. So let's adjust the table size to fit. I have the snapping on, so sometimes that gets a bit annoying. So in this case, I want to turn it off to have a little bit better control of my scale. I'm looking at the reference again. This is a typical interrogation lighting setup and the mood I'm going for. So I'm taking a quick look and see how the light is set up, or how the atmosphere is as a reference. I'll then start posing my character. I'm going to the frame 0 and I'll start moving the character into the base pose I want to use. This is all happening in real time, so you can see 100% completely unfiltered in real time how I am working through this scene. I'm just keeping making these micro adjustments. To get the base idea of the distance I want them from each other and the size of the table. I wanted to create this scene with only using objects that can be found already inside of Unreal, so nothing's coming from the marketplace except for the metahumans. As you can see, since I have turned on the key symbol, it will automatically set a key when I move my bones. So, as this is an interrogation scene, I want them leaning towards each other, as you also see in the reference. I'm not going too much into detail yet, I'm just still really roughly plucking things out. I didn't like the shape of his back, so I'm just adjusting the spine a little bit and the pelvis a little bit to have a bit nicer shape, how the back is arching. Now when I'm adjusting the shoulders, I'm reminded that often when you find mocap footage, even when you record your own mocap, often you find that the shoulders are missing or really limited in what they captured. So you have to do your own fixing and tweaking of that. You can always often tell when something's a mocap a lot just from the shoulders. I decided to click on the overall key button for the whole control rig, so I'm not gonna have any ugly surprises later. On frame 1, on 0 I mean. Now we have the base idea of the position of the characters. I'm duplicating the floor, turning on the snap, so it's easily snapping into a 90-degree angle, and I'm creating a wall. and I'm renaming it to wall back _1. I'm duplicating the wall. I'm having my snap on my rotate, so it easily snaps to a 90-degree angle again. And I will rename this wall left. I'm adjusting the attenuation radius on the light a little bit to be more fitting to what I'm going for. It was a little bit too bright. The light was a little bit too powerful, too long of a radius, so I'm adjusting a little bit, and I'm now adjusting the color that I'm looking for in the light. I'm looking within the standard materials if there's a wooden material I can use for the table. And I found one here that actually works pretty okay. We don't really see the table much, so I'm not putting way too much effort. I'm looking into material because it's a little bit shiny, so I'm turning up the roughness a little bit to make it a bit less shiny. I'm looking for the texture, the diffuse texture of the table, because I want to turn down the brightness a bit. That was a bit too much. I decided to keep the brightest, but then go for just lowering the saturation a little bit instead. I'm docking the texture up in the top view, or in the top panel, so I can access it again quickly if I need to. I'm adding an exponential height fog into my scene, looking for the volumetric fog, and I'm turning it on. I'm going into my post-process volume and turn on the infinite extent unbound, so it encompasses the whole scene. I'm turning on some bloom, set it to convolution. I'm looking for my exposure, turning it to default 1 and 1 in the min and max to have a full control over that exposure. And I'll make sure that the auto exposure is turned off in my practice settings, and that is the case, so that's great. Let's organize things a little bit. I'm selecting the assets in the scene, right clicking, move to, and I'm creating a new folder. I'm labeling this environment. I'm selecting my lights and anything that has to do with lighting, moving that into a folder that I call lighting. I'm adjusting the attenuation a little bit. Even with this, just this one light, I feel like we're getting pretty far. I'm adjusting the source width a little bit and the source height. On the bondo angle, just making micro adjustments. And through this process, you'll see me making a lot of adjustments all the time as I go along. You know, any form of creation is a constant process of constant evaluation. You keep letting it grow into what it needs to grow and keep making adjustments as you go along. I turned up the fog density a bit so you can see how the light it's going through the fog. I selected the end wall and I'm looking for material that fits it. I'm looking through the concrete materials. First there's a concrete tile here. I'm not sure about that. So I'm looking again. Concrete grime, let's see. That seems okay, but it's a bit large. So I'm gonna double click my material. And I'm gonna look for where I can control the coordinates. It's not the best way of doing things necessarily, because if you go into the base material and change the coordinates, it's gonna be impacting everywhere you use it. But in this case, it's a shortcut and it works for this case. So I'm finding the texture coordinates. I'm turning up the tiling a little bit. I'm gonna tile it a little bit more. And there you go. I am now moving the back wall a little bit back and forth to test how it works best for the scene. To have it close or a little bit further away. And it seems like if it's a little bit too close, it would actually be a bit distracting. I'm adding the concrete grime material to the floor as well. And to the rest of the walls to make sure that everything has the materials that it needs. I'm taking a look at the reference again. And as I said earlier, when you're working, you're gonna be constantly adjusting as you go along. Make sure that you're not too attached to something that you started. So I'll keep tweaking the lights a little bit back and forth to make sure I get the result that I really like. I can see I need a little bit of a bounce light, so I'm duplicating my light. And I'm setting the intensity to just 1. Putting it on the right side of the characters and then the screen to have a little bit of bounce light so they're not completely black in the shadows. That works a little bit better. Make sure to set your lights to movable or not stationary. Just a little side note. Let's duplicate it again. It looks like I didn't actually duplicate it, but I'll go back and fix that later. Now I want to shape a little bit more the light on the back left side of the agent character to shape a little bit more rim shape on her face. To get a little more shape so she stands out a little bit more from the background. You can see we're getting a little bit of rim behind her. I don't want it to be too dominating, because that wouldn't fit this particular scene or mood I'm going for. I'm doing these constant small micro adjustments all the time just to see how it looks when I'm moving it a little bit around, and how the light affects the character and what it does. And I'm testing how it looks with a bit of rim light on the Frank character. None of my cameras are going to be on the opposite side of these characters, so I'm going to keep them on this side of the characters, all my cameras. This fits with the 180-degree rule there is in cinematography, that you, generally speaking, keep your cameras on one particular side within a 180 degrees angle. Or else their characters will jump the line and things will stand out and jump to the face and look weird. You can break this rule sometimes, of course, but generally speaking, this is a rule that you follow to keep it easy on the eyes to follow what's going on and have a consistent flow of the cinematic language and where your eyes are directed. So for now, I kind of liked that rim light on the Frank character, so I'll keep that and I'll duplicate the light and add a similar light to the agent character. Right now it's a bit strong, but I do that on purpose because I want to see really clearly what the light does. And then I'll tone it down. I keep turning it on and off all the time because I want to see the difference, how it looks with or without it on. I'm having a little bit of a think right now. Alright, I'll enable the ray trace shadows on my light. It will get a bit more accurate lighting and shadows for my scene, so I've activated those. And I will activate cast translucent shadows. And also make sure the volumetric is on, the volumetric shadow is on. And now I'm correcting the mistake from earlier where the light was not duplicated. And I'm setting the bounce light again. Make sure it's not that strong. I set it to 0.5. Turn down the attenuation. I'm turning off the light 2 and 3 just to see more clearly what that bounce light does. I'm still moving and testing around just to play around with it, with the light. These backlights are still quite strong, a bit too much, but that makes me very clear about what they actually does in the scene, or what they actually do in the scene. So I'm turning them down now. I think we're already getting quite close to the reference for the mood we're going for. I'm adjusting the source width a little bit on the main light source from the top, from the roof. And again, I want to highlight that make sure to experiment as you go along. One step always leads to the next step. So when you do the lights, you don't have to commit to something that you created a long time ago. You want to be able to keep the liberty to keep adjusting and updating as you go along. I'm now setting an updated length of the shot. I'm setting it to 240 frames, which is around 10 seconds. And I'm gonna rename this to anim because I want my animation to be in this sequence and just the characters in here. So I'm gonna create a new sequence. Intro scene underscore (0010 underscore 010 underscore 01). Well, I actually already have a shot like that, so I'll just label it 002. And I'm gonna create my camera cross track and my camera. I'm going to take my film back to the DSLR. And choose a 50mm lens. And then I'm going to add a sub-scene track, and I will then add my anim sequence where I have my two characters as a sub-scene track. This keeps things really organized so that the animation of the characters are going to stay inside of this sequencer, so I can use the exact same animation for all my shots. I'm gonna divide my viewport up a little bit to make it easier to work. I'm gonna keep the cinematic viewport on the right and my perspective viewport on the left. This is the way I like to work with my viewport. It keeps things very easy for an efficient workflow for me. Then I can always see the camera in my right viewport and I can navigate around on the left. I'm now setting the focus on the characters. And this is my establishing shot, as you would call it. Some would probably call it something different, but I chose to call it establishing shot. You can also turn on grid. You have different options for grids, just to check if your things are lining up and are symmetrical. I'm duplicating the table now because I want to create the legs of the table. We are not really going to see it very much. It's going to be in complete shadow, so I just want some kind of indication of a table leg. I'm turning on the snap on the rotate, so I can easily just rotate it 90 degrees. And we have our first table leg. I'm duplicating the table leg, placing the second leg, I'm duplicating that one as well, and duplicating again. So now we have a primitive table. It works for what we need. I'm duplicating a table and a leg because I want to create a super simplified chair. We're not really gonna notice this chair at all, so I'm keeping it really, really primitive and simple. As you saw, what I did up in the viewport is I set my setting to unlit, so I'm just seeing the raw geometry in my scene without any light manipulation. If you have a really dark scene, that can be quite helpful to not be distracted by any light in your scene. placing my first leg on my chair. I'm duplicating the leg, and one more duplicate, and a fourth duplicate, and we have a primitive chair. I'll duplicate that, and now we have two very primitive chairs. And I'm turning on the light again to see how it looks in the scene. I'm adjusting the light a little bit again. I'm cheating a little bit to get a bit more of a shape of the characters' faces. It works a little bit better like this. I just wanted to see it from the other angle, how that looks. I'm selecting my post-process volume, and I'm making sure that my motion blur is activated and that my frames per second matches my overall sequence. I can see now that I forgot to set it to 24 frames per second, but I'll fix that later, this sequence. I'm selecting my camera, I'm setting my first keyframe, and then I'll move in the camera, I'll drag it in a little bit. When you click this camera symbol on the camera, you will see through the camera. So I'm gonna drag in the camera a little bit, and it will automatically set a keyframe. I'm making sure that the focus is also animated, or else we will lose the focus on the characters. So now going back to the first frame, checking where my focus is. It's a little bit off, so I'm gonna adjust it to the characters, set a keyframe, and now it's gonna match. I'm testing out the linear movement of the camera, and that works pretty well. Let's duplicate the shot and create a new shot. I set the lens to 85mm for this new shot. And I'm clicking the blue camera symbol so I make sure to see through the camera. This is a little bit too far away from me, but I just wanted to quickly see how that worked. So I'm gonna get it a little bit closer. I'm gonna create a new shot. I'm gonna create it from scratch just to show you different ways of creating shots and different workflows. So now we have the next shot that I called 30. I am gonna set it to 24 frames per second. I'm gonna click on the camera symbol and create a camera construct and a new camera. In my details panel, I'm gonna pick my film back and gonna set a focus, but first I am gonna create a subscene track. I'm gonna find the layer or the sequence with my characters and add it in there. Click on the blue camera symbol so I can see through the camera. And I'm gonna pick my lens, 85mm lens. And this camera, I want this camera to be on the Frank character. Now we created a camera on the 18 character, and this camera is for the Frank character. I'm just gonna roughly position the camera, and then I'm gonna adjust my focus accordingly. I'm gonna go a little bit back and forth on this shot and micro adjust the camera as I go along, but for now this angle kind of works for me. I'm now just testing to see how the different lights I have in my scene at this moment are impacting our character Frank. See what kind of adjustments I will need to make in order to optimize the look between the characters. I kind of like that rim light on Frank, so I'm probably gonna keep this. I'm gonna drag it in to this shot so it's active in this shot. I want to be able to adjust it on a shot per shot basis, or at least angle basis. This LOD that's on the characters is becoming a little bit of a challenge to work with when I'm setting the light, so I'm just gonna click on the Metahuman, right click it, click on edit character. I'm gonna go to the section of LOD sync, and in here I'm gonna set the force LOD to 0, which will then deactivate that LOD that's going on, And I'm making sure I'm going to do this on the agent character as well. Edit blueprint agent, scroll down to LOD sync and set the forced LOD 0. Click compile and save. Now we are going to be back to having no LOD, and you can more clearly see the lighting on your characters without the LOD making things confusing. I'm just contemplating a little bit about what exactly the lights I want or how I want them. I just deleted my light because I decided I wanted to do it so that this light is only visible from specific angles or specific shots. So I'm dragging in a completely new reg light directly into my sequence, the selected shot. And I'm setting the attenuation radius. And the bond or angle. I'm copying the color from one of the other lights to make sure it's gonna have the exact same color. And I paste it into my light. So this light, since I dragged it directly into the sequencer for shot 20, this light will only be activated in this shot. We're not going to see it in any of the other shots. I'm just moving it a little bit back and forth and around to see what I think works best for this rim kind of light. I want to give it a little bit of shape to the agent's face. And a little bit of rim on the arm. I'm dragging in my rect light 2 into my shot 10 on my establishing shot, because I'm pretty certain at this point that I don't want that light to be activated in that shot. It actually works a lot better without it, but still I wanted to test out if any kind of rim light would work in this shot, but I actually prefer it without it. I wanted to check the reg light 2, how it looks in the shot 20. If I turn it off or on, if I actually want it or not. So for now, I'm turning it off and I'm going down to my reg light 4. And I definitely want to keep that. I'm just going to adjust the intensity a little bit. I'm duplicating this light that was lighting up the side of the agent's face to give a little bit more shape to the agent's face. It's becoming a little bit more like a typical portrait standard lighting. And it's a bit better direction to go. I'm dragging it into this light so I have more individual control for this light in this particular shot. I'm going into a little bit of extremes just to allow myself to experiment a little bit while I'm working. I don't want it to light too much of the scene, so that's why I'm narrowing a little bit down the source width and the source height. So I'm focusing more on the face than the rest of the body. Now I'm checking the reg light rim on the agent as well. It's still a little bit too strong, the light, but it's moving in a good direction. It's the same here, the light are a little bit extreme. But often I like to go a little bit too far with the light, and then later on I start narrowing a little bit down, but with the extreme light I can more clearly see what that light actually does. I'm still playing a little bit around with this reg light 3, allowing myself to experiment a little bit before making a definite choice. I'm adding in a separate light called reg light 5 that I will test out with our Frank character. And I'm just seeing how much this reg light 3 actually is impacting the Frank character. Even though it's focused on the agent character, I still want to see how much it impacts Frank. Sometimes it's okay to have a little bit of spill light on your character, so I'm just testing it out. And I'm just tweaking the rim light of Frank a little bit. And I'll keep adjusting the camera as well a little bit. I'll keep making these small micro adjustments as I go along. And then when I start animating him, I will again adjust the camera. And I really recommend you to allow yourself to experiment as well when you keep creating these kind of shots, cinematics. Because if you just go by default what you know, you are gonna get a lot of the same results, but still allow yourself to try things out. It's a good way of you keep pushing the boundaries of learning. I'm creating a new sequence. This sequence is for me to do an edit inside of Unreal Engine just to quickly test out the shots. Instead of me having to render them out and trying to see the edit inside of Premiere before I'm finished, I'm just doing a little bit of a pre-edit inside of Unreal. And this is the way I would do it. I would create a new sequence where I can drag in the other sequences or shots and do a quick pre-edit as I go along to get a quick idea of how it's flowing. I wanted to quickly show you, if you go into the engine scalability settings, you can set the quality a little bit lower. If you have a machine that has a hard time running your shots, then you can quickly go in and set the quality level a little bit down to have a bit more smooth workflow. Because I noticed when I was playing these shots that it was not running super smooth with a super high frame rate. It's also because I don't have any LOD on my Metahumans, so that could take quite a lot of computing power. So sometimes for your workflow, it's good to set the quality settings down, and then when you get to the render, you set it up again. See, I'm still tweaking this reg light on our Frank character, and I like the light a lot more now when it's a little bit more subtle. It looks a lot better this way. And I think the light on this aging character is also starting to look pretty good. Still a little bit too strong, so mainly things a little bit more subtle works a lot better. But it's really starting to take shape. I believe that when it comes to lighting, there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. It's up to you to decide what is right or wrong. And a different director might have chosen a bit different light setup for this scene. But that's the beauty of being a filmmaker. You're making your own interpretation of your story and your artistic choices. And now I'm just fixing the frames per second. In this shot, it was at 30. I'm making sure there's 24 frames per second, so everything is consistent. I will also have to adjust the length of each shot when I get to the animation. Right now it's only 10 seconds, and I know in the end, cinematic, the shots will have to be longer. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how the light looks. I know I'm going to do some more adjustments after the animation, but for now, to start animating, I think it works pretty well. Next step for me is to add Lipsync using the new audio to Lipsync feature in Unreal Engine 5.5. First, I'll create a folder. I'll call it audio. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm gonna import a pre-recorded audio that I already recorded. And you can see I have a female voice and I have a male voice that I have recorded already. And I import that into Unreal. Then I right click, select Metahuman Animator, and I select Metahuman Performance. I label it to cat voice because that matches the name I gave my recording of the female. Cat voice meta. Then I'll change the input type to audio, and I'll then search for the audio. So search for cat, and then it's there, the cat voice audio. I'm gonna expand this so it's easier to see what's happening. And I don't really need to change anything in the time cone alignment and in the control rig either. And in the visualization mesh, I have to make sure to find the correct one, and it's the agent face mesh, because that's the female metahuman. And then I'm just waiting for it to be ready to load. It can take a bit of time first time. Just be patient. There it is. And then we click process. That's how easy it is.
Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. It is not exactly secret.
That seems to work pretty well.
Can you teach me?
Great. Let's export the animation, and we'll export it into the audio folder. Don't need to change anything here. Just making sure it's the right skeleton. It is. And then click create. And then it's already created and saved into the correct folder. Let's save it. Let's do the same for the male character. Right click, click Metahuman Animator. Frank voice meta. We'll double click that. Change the input type to audio. Find the voice, Viking voice, and find the face mesh for the Frank character. Let's search for it. Frank face mask, select it. And we are waiting for the asset to load again. Click yes. And there it is. Let's click process. That was supposed to be a secret. What are you gonna do about it? Great, that works. Let's export it. Now we have both performances exported. Let's open up our cinematic scene. Open our characters, subscene track. Let's find first our agent. We delete the face control rig, click on face, the plus button, look for animation, and there we see it on top, the cat voice meta. Let's see how it looks in the scene. It works. We don't have the audio yet. So let's add the audio. Click the add button. Search for an audio track. Click yes. Click the plus button on the audio track. Search for the cat voice. There it is. And I'm going to extend out the sequence to match the length of the voice. Let's see it. I'm going to add the Viking voice as well. And I'm deleting the control rig, looking for the animation of the Viking voice or Frank voice, and I'm adding it. Now we are gonna add a layer to our face animation. We click the plus button, scroll up for the control rig, turn on layers, and select the face control rig. This will allow you to add layered animation on top of the animation you already have, the base animation of the lip sync. We want to further enhance the facial animation. I'm gonna show you an example. Let's select the mouth or jawbone, move it to the side, and then you can see that we have the lip sync with an added animation on top. I'm gonna show it with the eyes as well. If you wanted to look to the left all the way through as he's talking, then how it works. And then you can set keyframes and animate on top of this. And now that we have the lip sync, I am gonna start adding more shots to the sequence. I'm duplicating this shot and renaming it to shot 40. I'm putting it in the wrong place. It should be there. It's still sequence 10, but the shot is shot 40. And it's version 1. And let's check the shot. I'm gonna delete my camera. I'm gonna create a new camera and a new camera cuts track. I'm gonna set the film back to the same as the other shots to keep consistency. And I'm gonna make a much more narrow lens. I'm gonna use a 105mm lens. Click on my draw debug focus plane. I'm setting a tap focus for now. So kind of close. I want to move closer because I wanted this to be a close-up. This kind of works. I'm still gonna tweak it a little bit here and there, all the way until I finish. For now, I think it works. Checking the focus again. I want the focus to be on the eye. Let's see it.
Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is.
Okay. So I'm duplicating this shot of the agent because I want a close-up of that as well. I'm naming this one 60. I'm going to my details and to my outliner. Sending it to 105 millimeter. I think that works pretty well. And setting a focus, and I'm gonna make some adjustments. I'm not super satisfied with this, so I'm gonna try something out. And I realize I quite like the profile, so I'm gonna play a little bit more around with this profile.
Admit it. You're making.
I want to go closer for a dramatic effect. And have to focus on the eye.
Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this one for now. Let's duplicate this shot and call it 70. Number 1. Go to the details, set the film back to the right film back. And the 105mm lens. I decided I also wanted to have a bit 3/4 shot as well to choose from when editing. So just tweaking the focus, I'm gonna play a little bit around with it.
Admit it. You're making cinematics with
I'm going into my full scene now and clearing it. And I'm gonna start dragging in my shots to see them play out.
admit it. Admit it.
I like it starting on that profile shot as the first shot that we see. It's a nice dramatic start. I'm gonna drag in the next shot.
Admit it. You're making cinematic. You're making cinematic.
I'm gonna quickly skip through this whole process of me editing in Unreal. You can see already what I've been doing so far and how I'm working. And if you want to duplicate that workflow, you can go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do a full-on edit anyways in Premiere afterwards. So I'm gonna skip this for now.
Can you teach me?
And now I'm gonna go into the full animation section of this sequence. I'm starting to move and animate the head of the agent. I'm just slowly start with a few keyframes here and there to have a bit of living animation. But what I'm gonna focus on a lot here is that it's kind of talking heads. So I'm very much focusing on the accents on the voices, and I'm using those accents in animation for the head movements and emphasizing movements on those accents, which is admitted. So for example, admit becomes an accent, and I'm kind of using that in my animation of the head. I am not going to cut away. I actually want to show you the full process, unfiltered and unedited, of me making this animation, but there's not much for me to say in this process. I'll just let you observe and see the stages I go through when I do this animation of this cinematic from shot to shot.
Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me? Admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not. It. You're making you're admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me? Can you Can you teach me? Admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is with unreal engine
that
and
that was supposed to be
it's exactly like with Unreal Engine
that was supposed
engine Unreal Engine
that was
Unreal Engine
that was
Unreal Engine
that was supposed that was supposed to be that was supposed to be
engine
that was that that was supposed to be a secret
engine
that was supposed to be a secret
it is
that was
Real Engine and Real Engine
that to be
Real Engine
that was supposed to be a that that was supposed that
Engine
that 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 was supposed
Real Engine
that that was supposed to that was supposed to be a secret that was supposed to be that was supposed to be a secret
it is
that to be post
Engine with Unreal with Unreal Engine
that was supposed to post
Unreal Engine
that was to be a
it is Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is exactly secret.
Now do it. Do you a secret?
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it? Do
Can you teach me? Teach me. With Unreal Engine.
that was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do? Supposed to be a but that was supposed to be secret.
It is not.
Secret be a secret. Supposed to be a secret. Be a secret. Supposed to be a secret.
It is not.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exact.
Be
It is not.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly.
That was to be a secret.
It
Was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly.
Was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
Be a secret.
Not exactly secret. Exactly secret.
What are you gonna? What are you gonna? What are you gonna? What are you? You gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? About do
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it? So that was supposed to be a secret.
And engine.
That was supposed to be a
Real engine.
that that was that was supposed to be a that was supposed to be a that
Engine.
that was supposed to
Real engine.
that was supposed to be a secret.
It is
That
cinematics. King 6 and engine.
that was supposed secret. That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it? That was supposed to be a secret.
It is
Supposed to be supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about you gonna do about it?
Exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me? Admit it. You're making admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Admit it. You're making cinematics. Admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do?
Unreal Engine.
Supposed to secret. Be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you,
it is not exactly secret.
what, what are you gonna do about that was supposed to be a secret. Secret.
It is it is Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What? That was be a
It is not
supposed to be a secret.
It is
Be it was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Admit it. You're making cinematics with cinematics with Unreal cinematics. You're making cinematics. Making cinematics. Making cinematics with unrealistic with cinematics with with real with you're making cinematics with Unreal Engine that was supposed to cinematics with real with Unreal cinematics with Unreal Engine that was with Unreal Engine that was supposed with Unreal Engine that was supposed to be a secret. It is not cinematics with Unreal Engine with Unreal Engine with Unreal Engine Unreal Engine that was to be with Unreal Engine that was supposed to be a Unreal Engine with Unreal Engine Unreal Engine that was with Unreal Engine that was supposed to be a secret. It is not. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine that was supposed to be a secret. With Real Engine that was supposed to be that was supposed to be a secret. It is. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine that was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That's stupid. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine that was supposed to with Unreal that was supposed to exact secret. With Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? Can you teach me? Cinematic. You can add it one and secret. Exactly secret. It's to be secret. It is exactly secret. Do about exactly secret. You teach me. I made it. Cinemas mathematics making cinema secret. That to be a secret. Not a like this to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. It was supposed to be secret. It is not secret. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you do about what are you gonna do about it? Can you teach me? Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? Can you teach me? Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? not kings. Admit it. You're making statics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What do you do about it? Can you teach me? Can you teach me? Admit it. You're making statics with Unreal Engine. You're making it. You're making it. Admit it. You're making cinematic it. You're making mathematics with mathematics with you're making mathematics. You're making mathematics. Making cinematics. You're making six. You're making cinematic. You're making cinematics. Making cinematic. Making statics. Making cinematic. Making cinematics. You're making cinematics. You're making cinematics with you're making cinematics. Cinematics. cinematics, making cinematics, making cinematics, making cinematics with Unreal Engine. Making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That with Unreal Engine, with imagining Unreal Engine, make cinematic Unreal Engine, with cinematics, Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. Not exactly. What do you about it? Be a secret. It's not secret. What that to be exactly it's not. It is not exactly secret. And you is not exactly secret. What are you? It's not exactly not. It is not exactly supposed to be a secret. It is not. And that was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. It's exactly secret. It is a secret. It is not exactly secret. To be a secret. What is that was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? Can you teach me? Teach me. Can you teach me? You got to produce. Can you teach? Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not. It is. It is. Mimics Unreal Engine. With Unreal Engine. You're mixing mathematics. Unreal, 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 unreal. With Unreal supposed secret. With added admitted 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 you're making cinematics. You're making cinematics. Admitted you're making cinematics. You're admitted you're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not. Admitted you're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not. What? Ad admitted you're making cinematics with Unreal Engine. That was supposed to be a secret. It is not exactly secret. What are you gonna do about it? What it's not exactly secret. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? About gonna do it. You can't do about it. gonna do about it? What it do gonna do about it? Gonna do about it? You gonna do about gonna do about it? You gonna do about it? Do you gonna do about it? What do you gonna do about it? What are 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 you gonna do? What are you gonna what are you gonna what what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? About it? About do about do you what are you gonna are you gonna what are you gonna what are you gonna what are you gonna do about it? Do about it? We're gonna do about it? What do about it? What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do it?
Exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Addicts with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exact. Added.
I reached a point where I'm pretty happy with the animation, so now I'm gonna move into the render. I'm selecting my shots and I'm setting my render settings, but first I'm adding the shots onto my queue. There you have it. Now I'm going to set the render settings. And I'm going to remove the JPEG and make it EXR instead for higher quality rendering. And I'm going to make sure to have my anti-aliasing on. I'm going going to set my anti-aliasing to 16 in the temporal sample count, and in spatial sample count is 1. And then in my output, I'm going to set the correct output and label it to something that makes sense. Going to create a folder, call it shot 10 for the shot 10. I might create more versions of this, so I'm going to create a new folder, call it 01, in case I'm going to have to make more renders. I'm going to save this as a preset, and I'm going to save it in a new folder, calling it render preset. And I'm also going to name it render preset. Save. Accept. Now I can go in and add my render preset to all the other shots. The only thing is they are not going to be rendering to the right folder. So I just have to make sure that all the shots are going to render to the correct folder. There's a little bit manual labor here. Now we're rendering. And now the shots is finished rendering. We're gonna go into Premiere, where I'm gonna go to File, Import. I'm gonna find the shots and gonna make sure to click and activate the image sequence and then open. And when I open a shot, I'm gonna right click and go up to modify, interpret footage, and just double check that is the right frames per second setting. I'm gonna import the other shots as well. And then I'm gonna drag them all into my edit. I'm putting them all on top of each other, so they're all lining up because they all have the exact same timing. So it should fit at this point. I'm gonna speed up this whole process of the editing. There's not much value of you watching me slowly process through the old editing part of this. I'm just quickly going to show you how I'm making the cuts, where I'm making the cuts, and how I'm working, so you get an idea of my workflow. In the edit, I'm now adding in the audio that was recorded.
Admit it. Admit it. You're making you're making it. You're making cinematics. Admit it. You're making Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Admit it. You're making cinematics. Admit it. You're making. Admit it. You're making cinematics with. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to
Admit it. You're making cinematics. Admit it. Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it? About it.
Can you teach? Can you teach? Can you can you can you teach? Admit it. You're Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? What about it?
Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me? Admit it. You're making cinematics with Unreal Engine.
That was supposed to be a secret.
It is not exactly secret.
What are you gonna do about it?
Can you teach me?